Hi, Orkturks. Today we're going to talk about how to play number 125 in your Essential Elements Book 1, Jingly Nona. For this song, we combine a couple of different techniques that we've been working on in the past. So the first technique that we see is that this song starts on an upbeat, which remember means that it starts on beat 4 instead of starting on beat 1. And it's also going to mean that we start with an up bow. We start with a push. So the first thing that I'm going to do as I learn this new song is I'm going to clap and count it. I'm not going to clap and count the whole thing right now. You are capable of doing that on your own. But I am going to just remind you kind of what that should look like, because whenever we learn a new song, we want to make sure that we go through the right steps so that we learn it correctly and we don't learn it with mistakes. So I'm going to turn on a metronome, and my metronome today is just on my phone. It's just a free metronome app. And I have my metronome set to 76. You can, of course, go slower if you feel like you need to go slower. You probably don't want to go much faster than that when you're learning something new, because you run the risk of kind of skipping through a little bit too quickly and not realizing that you're making a mistake. But 76 is a good tempo for right now. I've got it on. It's clicking away. Hopefully you can hear it okay. And 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay. I'm going to stop there. Notice how you have slurs in some of those measures. And when you have slurs, remember that you want to clap twice. The only time that you're going to clap just one time for two notes is when those two notes are the same note and they are tied together. But these are two different notes that are slurred, so we clap 2 times. My next step is that I'm going to pluck and count. Before I pluck and count, though, I'm going to look at my music and notice that some of these notes have 4s over them, and some of these notes have 0s. And remember, that means that you're either going to use a 4th finger or an open string. The first note is an open D note, but it does not have a number above it. I'm going to recommend that you start on a 4th finger, because remember, the rule of 4th finger tells us that if we don't need any other notes on that open string, that we want to use the 4th finger. And here we're going from the D to the G, so we're not going to use any notes on the D string before we play notes on another string. So I'm going to start with a 4th finger. Set up my metronome again. I'm going to do some plucking and counting. Setting up my 4th finger. Here we go. 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay, and stop right there. So hopefully you noticed that I counted my tays. I did my subdividing the whole time that I was doing that. I used 4th finger when I was plucking. I kept a pulse going on my body so that I stayed right with the metronome, and I plucked each of those slurred notes separately so that we hear both of them. Now for this first half, I'm ready to start with my bow. So I'm going to turn my metronome back on. And of course, if you want a shadow bow before you do this step, or sing your notes or any of those other middle steps, you are welcome to pause the video and do that. I'm just going through kind of the big steps right now. So I'm going to start my bow at the tip, because we're going to start on an up bow. I've set my 4th finger, I have my metronome on, and I'm going to count myself off. 1 tay, 2 tay, breathe. wanted to do some separate stopped slurred to remind yourself of how to divide your bow during those slurs, you certainly could. That would look like this. Separate. And then try it again with stops. Up, up. And then finally adding the slurs. Remember, make sure that you're dividing your bow really nicely in half. Good bow division so that we get an even sound, a beautiful sound on both of those slurred notes. Going on, the big thing that I have to keep track of in the second half of this song is that I have to do some string crossings and some note skips that require me to do some good tunneling, especially from third finger on the G string to first finger on the E string. So you can go ahead and do your clapping and counting and plucking and counting steps for that. For right now, just for the sake of time, I'm going to skip ahead and show you what that sounds like when you bow it, and you can play along with me when you're ready. But until then, go ahead, pause the video, do your plucking and counting, make sure that you know what notes are coming up, make sure that you know when to use fourth finger, and make sure that your tunnels are correct before you try and add the bow. But I'm starting from that C in the middle of the second line where you have that first tunnel. Here we go. 1, 2, from that C and go. Tunnel here. Stretch your fourth finger here. Again, tunnel. The first ending, and instead of going all the way back to the beginning, I'm going to find the matching repeat sign, which happens to be the first full measure, but it skips the upbeat. So I'm not going to play that upbeat in the very beginning again. I'm going to jump straight to the first full measure and play the whole song through. Right now, I'm going to start all the way back at the beginning, and I'm going to play the whole song through with the metronome from beginning to end, making sure that I follow all of those careful technique steps that we just talked about. I'm going to take the first ending, I'm going to do the repeat, I'm going to go to the second ending. Once you feel like you're ready, you can play it along with me and make sure that your bow is matching my bow. Make sure that your fingers sound the same as my fingers. Good luck. Here we go. 1, 2, breathe. So I'm going to make sure that it sounds like one extra long note. Now, this is a song that brings together, like I said, a lot of techniques that we've been working on. So if that was a lot of information and you're not feeling quite ready to play the whole thing through just yet, that's okay. Here are some practice strategies that you can use to help you. We did some big sections of like add a phrase. You can back up and you can use add a measure. We did a little separate stop slurred. We talked about tunneling. You can do add a note if the notes are tricky. We did clapping and counting. We did plucking and counting. I talked about singing your note names or shadow bowing. That's 8 different practice strategies that you can use just for this one song. So I encourage you to find a practice strategy that's going to help you to understand the piece better and help to make you sound better, and then to slowly work your way up so that you can play the whole thing through from start to finish, and maybe even record yourself playing it and seeing if it sounds the way that you want or if there are things that you can improve to make it sound even better. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, or send me an email, or leave me a note on Google Classroom, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.